Hello, everybody. February 2025. Going to look at some of the Trump cannabis policy promises, where we are. I actually did a podcast that will be released next week with Aaron Smith. He's the chairman of the NCIA. We recorded that yesterday, so got his update. We'll hit rescheduling as well. So I think Trump is mildly positive to cannabis. I think it's very low importance one way or another. He's got other things more important, but at least it's not negative. If there's ever a bill in this term that gets to his desk to sign, I think that'd be a positive. Also, I think Pam Bondi came out, the Attorney General, just saying, look, that she's behind Trump, whatever he wants. She's going to follow that whim. RFK has not been approved yet. He got out of committee as the head of the HHS department, which started this whole process. So hopefully he has some influence. He's wanted cannabis to be completely descheduled, not just reclassified to Schedule 3. So we got a lot of things on that front. On the I'm going to try to post some of these in Facebook from a webinar. So I've got so just kind of this red wave that came in, similar to 2017. So right now we're just getting that transition, getting cabinet members approved. Tax cuts, I mean, they're bickering about now it's less bickering Republicans, Democrats. It's Republicans and Republicans bickering about what is going in or what's not going in. I think any cuts that were expiring, like estate and gifting, that's likely going to be extended. Those expired at the end of this year. So we'll see what happens with that. Let me see what else we have. So also, banking access. We talked about this yesterday. Safe Banking Act. That has more chance to get through this time around, which would be a big boon for the industry as well. So we'll see where we are on that. Corporate taxes. So, Trump has proposed knocking them down to 15%. That would be awesome for all businesses, including mine and maybe yours. We'll see what happens with that. Extending deductions, maybe adding more bonus depreciation and R&D. We'll see what happens with all that. So then how that relates to, let me make sure I'm covering all this, how that relates to drug rescheduling. So from my talk with Aaron Smith yesterday, so there was a hearing. We were at the final step of the DEA moving cannabis to Schedule 3. Aaron brought up a really good point, and by the way, post your comments or questions here as well. This goes back to the Nixon era, so you can't blame one side or the other, but it's kind of nuts. The DEA is the agency that has the power to move a drug from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 or deschedule it altogether, and that's really a silly rule. So we have this massive department called the Health and Human Service Department, filled with scientists and people that's what they do. They analyze medicines and they give a recommendation to the DEA, hey, this one should come off Schedule 1, move to Schedule 3. By the way, whenever they do recommend, they've done this a 2-year process with cannabis, they did recommend it belongs in Schedule 3. It is real medicine. This is where all the scientists and those kind of people are. DEA, what are they? They're a bunch of cops and enforcers. They have no business, people at DEA, deciding what is a medicine and what's not a medicine. So it's kind of nuts that they're the ones giving the final okay or not. Again, cops, including DEA, they just enforce laws. They shouldn't be guiding, setting them. So that's one really odd thing about this. We don't even really need this hearing that was in January that just got put off. We don't even have to have that, as Aaron Smith pointed out. The HHS has recommended moving Schedule 3. The FDA, who's the FDA? The Food and Drug Administration. They monitor all medicines. They said it belongs in Schedule 3. So even if the DEA wanted to argue, who are they to argue? What the heck do they know? The FDA DEA or HHS supported it. DEA came into court on December 2nd and said they supported it. That's where things got really confusing. They told the judge flat out, "We support the move to Schedule 3." They're on record. It's on YouTube. Go listen to it. And so now we've got all three. We've got HHS, FDA, and the DEA. They said right there in court they wanted to move it to Schedule 3, but there were many cannabis groups. There were some evidence and things done maybe illegally behind the scenes, and people were like, "Wait a minute, this is a trick." They don't really want to move it to Schedule 3. They're going to come into the actual hearing and bring a couple witnesses and try to pull a fast one. So pro cannabis groups, two of them, and against the advice of the NCIA. NCIA was like, "Let's just have the hearing. It doesn't matter what the DEA does. We're moving to Schedule 3. The judge is not going to buy into any of this stuff." The judge actually hinted at that strongly. You can again go listen to that on YouTube. But these two cannabis groups, companies said, "No, we're going to file a lawsuit." So now it's in a 90-day hold. We're waiting to see. We do not know who the DEA head is going to be. Trump still hasn't nominated one. He nominated one. That one got canceled. So we don't know who the head of the DEA is. That's going to have some influence. The NCIA, and by the way, go join the NCIA. Dope CFO members have a huge 50% off discount. If you're not in Dope CFO, go join anyway. They're pushing this movement forward in a big way. They're working things behind the scenes right now to try to get this thing moved forward. And so, as much as even we're all seeing these executive orders Trump's doing on whatever tariffs, immigration. Same for cannabis. He could real quickly. We doesn't need the DA. It needs Pam Bondi. He could just say, "Hey Pam, I get it that you're working for me. You do what I say to you." He could just say, "Pam, sign off. Let's move to Schedule 3 today." It could be done in one day. We'd be done. And that would be awesome. So let's see what happens. And who knows what RFK, if he gets in, is he going to have influence? Is Trump going to say to RFK, "Hey, RFK, anything medical, including cannabis, that's your area. You go do it." And then RFK may come back. "Great. Let's move to Schedule 3. Maybe it'll be a done deal." So there's a few things going around. We could also potentially get a cannabis amendment to another bill getting pushed through. Sadly, as Aaron mentioned, as far as senators in particular, not quite as much in the House. It's still kind of a Republican Democrat issue, which is crazy because, as Aaron again mentioned, it's not what the voters are 85% pro cannabis, and that includes Republicans, Democrats, Independents. So we're an overwhelming majority on the public, but still, even though we elect our senators and congressmen, for some reason, some of the Republicans that we elected don't get it, that their own constituents want this moved over. But that is slowly changing. That's why we've seen even many red states go completely all into cannabis because it's not a partisan issue. And it's silly that it ever would be. There's certain things that just shouldn't be red or blue. I say a great example is alcohol. Alcohol is not, it's not like, "Oh, all the Democrats love beer and alcohol and wine, and Republicans all hate beer, alcohol, and wine." Or coffee. There's certain things, the internet, there's certain things we all want. And those things should be legal. And it's ridiculous that it's taken us 13 years to get this far. Hopefully we'll keep moving that dial forward. We're a little bit of a holding pattern right now. What we want to do though, I'm going to be optimistic. I've always said there's 4 ways that we can legalize. First and foremost is the state, cities, and counties. They're doing it on their own. They've been doing it on their own for 20 years now. And they've done it so much on their own that we now have cannabis legal in some form in 47 states out of 50. Because of that, and states, forget what happened in just the elections 2 months ago. Since then, Wisconsin, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Texas, Florida's got a new bill. They're just moving forward still. And if you look at cannabis revenues since 2012, every single year, national revenues have grown. The industry's growing. There's nothing stopping it because, again, 8 out of 10 of us want it. And so that movement's moving forward at the state front. That's the easiest way, and it's happening, and it will happen. And if the feds don't get their act together for another 10 years, you're likely going to see cannabis legal in every state. We've also got intoxicating hemp issues as well. I'm not going to dive into that. Because of all these states legalizing, 2 years ago, the Supreme Court threatened, we're getting involved in this sooner or later, to the feds. Hey, feds, Congress, if you don't get your act together, get a bill passed. You got many chances, the more act, etc. We'll get involved and say, this is, you can't have this many states doing something that the federal law disagrees with. So that's the second way. Third way, Congress. We got really close with the MORE Act a couple of times. It passed the House. The president would have signed, and we were pretty freaking close in the Senate, maybe 2-3 votes away. So there was a couple times Congress got really close. And now the final way is just move cannabis off Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 or deschedule it. That's where the fourth way, which we're pretty close. We'll see what happens. And like Aaron said, there's on the descheduling or rescheduling, it's almost a done deal. The only question is time. How long is it going to take us? Like, we've done all the steps. It's the final hearing. It got stayed. We're in a 90-day hold. Maybe they can push another hold. But I think by the end of this year at the latest, we're going to see movement. I'm hopeful that we get something much sooner. So let's see where that happens. And those are the four ways. Now, if you want a fifth way to help the industry, this is a long shot, but Trump's been saying it, and we all know he's a wild card. He said he's going to eliminate the income tax. Well, I'm all for it. If you want to, I deal with tax, and if you want to switch tax, a new form of taxation to fund the government, whether it's consumption, sales tax, tariffs, whatever you want to do, get rid of the income tax. Yeah, I would potentially be for that. Depending on how it went, it would be not only would 280E go away for cannabis, all tax would go away for cannabis. So every single company in the U.S., including cannabis, would have a massive windfall. It would be, you'd set off the bull run in the stock market of all time. I mean, it's just simple math. If taxes go down for all companies to zero, from where and this is where that, if this ever did happen, it would benefit cannabis companies 3x to any other companies. So a cannabis company that pays effectively anywhere from 40 to 60% tax rate, if that went to zero, their cash flow, first off, their net income and their EBITDA overnight would go through the roof. Their cash flow would go through the roof. Their business valuation as appraised would go through the roof. Viridian Capital recommended just the 280E effect would knock their valuations up 8x. If income tax went all the way off, those cannabis companies, you'd see the public cannabis companies, literally their stocks would go through the roof. It would be nutty to even think about it. People in the past have thrown around the income tax idea. We do. We're a 200-year-old country. We've not always had the income tax, so it is a possibility. It's something to consider. Who knows? Again, we don't know a lot of things, so we'll just sit back, watch, see what happens. We'll deal with whatever. In the meantime, 280 does apply for 2024 and prior. The IRS has said that. We've had a couple other talks specifically on that. If you're a cannabis company, if you're a farm, a manufacturer, a chemical processing plant, you darn better well be doing gap level cost accounting, not just at year end with your tax person, every quarter at a minimum, and you will lower your tax bill in a huge amount. If you're not doing that, and by the way, whenever I meet the last 10 years, cannabis owners all over the place, all over the U.S., I've never found one that was doing gap level cost accounting correctly. And I'm like, great, your tax bill's wrong, you're overpaying taxes, or worse, you're underpaying, and you're in big trouble, you got a big liability because the IRS is coming. So anyway, if you are a CEO and that's you ought to be reaching out to us and let us take a look under your hood. More than likely, we can correctly minimize your taxes and improve your cash flow as well. So that, and if you're a dispensary, I would be filing a protective refund claim for prior years. I would make sure I had a good tax attorney involved. There's lots of them, but like Jen Benda, Rachel Gillette at Holland and Hart, Nick Richards, get one of them to sign off, do it right. That's a way to potentially, if Schedule 3 does go away, to get some refunds in prior years. But again, those are some strategies you can look at to do now.